I didn't believe in signs. Not until the night a stranger whispered my name in a crowded room, and I had never seen him before in my life. Some people say the universe sends you what you need when you're not looking. I used to think that was nonsense. Romantic nonsense. The kind of thing you tell yourself when you're lonely and tired of swiping left on faces that blur together. But then he showed up, and everything I thought I knew about coincidence, about fate, about myself, shattered in a single moment. My name is Claire Monroe. I'm 34. I live in Brooklyn. I write for a living, mostly essays about modern love, dating disasters, and the quiet heartbreak of wanting someone who doesn't want you back. Ironic, isn't it? I spend my days dissecting other people's emotions, turning their pain into poetry, their longing into lessons. But when it comes to my own life, I'm a mess, a beautiful, well-dressed, articulate mess. It was late October when it happened, the kind of autumn night that smells like rain and feels like change. I had just finished a column about emotional unavailability, another piece I didn't need to research because I'd lived it 100 times. I was tired of dating apps, tired of first dates that felt like job interviews, tired of men who said all the right things but never stayed long enough to mean them. So I did what I always do when I need to feel something real. I went out alone, not to meet anyone, not to be seen, just to exist in a room full of people and remember that the world is bigger than my laptop screen and my silent apartment. I chose a wine bar in the West Village, small, warm lighting, jazz playing low in the background. The kind of place where you can sit at the bar with a glass of Merlot and a book, and no one bothers you. Or so I thought. I was halfway through my second glass when I felt it. You know that feeling, right? When someone is looking at you, and your body knows before your mind does. I glanced up, and there he was, sitting 3 seats down. Dark hair, sharp jawline, eyes that weren't just looking at me, they were reading me, like I was a story he'd been waiting to finish. I looked away quickly. Too quickly. My heart did that stupid flutter thing it does when something unexpected happens. Don't, I told myself. Don't fall for a stranger's gaze in a dimly lit bar. You're smarter than this. But then he moved. He didn't walk over. He didn't smile or wave or do any of the obvious things men do when they want your attention. He just leaned back in his seat, still watching me, and said loud enough for me to hear, soft enough to feel intimate. Claire. I froze. My name. He said my name. Not, hey, excuse me. Not, hi, sorry to bother you. Just, Claire. Like he knew me. Like we'd met before. Like this wasn't the first time he'd said it. I stared at him, my pulse racing, my mind scrambling for an explanation. Had we met? At a party? Through work? Maybe he recognized me from my column photo, though I used a pen name and the picture was grainy at best. I must have looked confused because he smiled then. Not a cocky smile, not a flirtatious one. A knowing smile. I'm sorry, he said, standing up and moving closer. That was dramatic. I'm Adrian. He extended his hand. I took it without thinking. His grip was warm, steady, the kind of handshake that makes you feel like you're the only person in the room. How do you know my name? I asked, trying to sound calm even though my voice was shaking. He tilted his head slightly, still holding my hand. You're Claire Monroe. You write that column. Confessions of a Romantic Cynic. I've been reading it for months. Oh. I pulled my hand back, suddenly self-conscious. You read my work? Every week, he said, sitting down on the stool next to mine without asking. You're honest, painfully honest. Most people hide behind metaphors. You don't. I didn't know what to say. I wasn't used to this. Men didn't read my writing. Men didn't approach me with compliments about my words. They complimented my smile, my dress, the way I laughed. But my writing, that felt intimate. I don't usually get recognized, I said, wrapping my fingers around my wine glass like it could anchor me. That's because most people don't pay attention, Adrian said. But I do. The way he said it, slow, deliberate, made my stomach flip. We talked for hours. Or maybe it was minutes. Time felt irrelevant. The bar could have emptied around us and I wouldn't have noticed. He wasn't like the men I usually met. He didn't try to impress me. He didn't ask surface-level questions or talk about himself endlessly. He asked things that mattered. What made you start writing about love? He asked. Heartbreak, I said without hesitation. I figured if I was going to hurt, I might as well turn it into something useful. He nodded. And has it helped? The writing? I paused. No one had ever asked me that. Sometimes, I admitted. Sometimes it makes it worse, because I analyze everything. I can't just feel something. I have to understand it, explain it, give it a narrative arc. That sounds exhausting. It is. He leaned closer. Well, then why do you do it? Because, I said, meeting his eyes. If I don't write about it, I'll drown in it. He held my gaze. And for the first time in a long time, I felt seen. Not desired. Not admired. Seen. Like he understood the weight I carried, the loneliness I dressed up in clever sentences, the ache I turned into art. I get it, he said quietly. And I believed him. Somewhere between the third glass of wine and the moment the bartender dimmed the lights, the energy between us shifted. It wasn't just intellectual anymore. It wasn't just conversation. It was something else. Something heavier. Warmer. Dangerous. He reached across the bar and brushed a strand of hair away from my face. His fingers lingered for half a second too long. You have no idea how rare you are, do you? He said. My breath caught. You don't know me. I know enough. You know what I let people see. Then show me the rest. It wasn't a question. It was a challenge. And God help me. I wanted to accept it. I wanted to let him in. I wanted to stop protecting myself for once. I wanted to be reckless and brave and stupid. But fear has a way of disguising itself as logic. I don't do this, I said, my voice barely a whisper. I don't go home with strangers. I'm not asking you to. Then what are you asking? He smiled, that same knowing smile from before. I'm asking you to trust yourself. And just like that, I realized something. He wasn't trying to seduce me. He was trying to wake me up. We left the bar together. The city was quiet. Rain had started to fall. Soft, steady, the kind that soaks you slowly. We walked without a destination, past brownstones, under streetlights, through puddles that reflected the glow of neon signs. He didn't touch me, but I could feel him. The space between us hummed with possibility. I have to ask you something, I said, stopping under a scaffolding overhang to escape the rain. Go ahead. Why me? He frowned. What do you mean? Why did you come over tonight? Why did you say my name like that? Like you'd been waiting for me? He stepped closer. Close enough that I could see the rain droplets caught in his hair. Close enough that I had to tilt my head up to meet his eyes. Because I have been waiting for you, he said simply. That's not an answer. Yes, it is. I shook my head, half laughing, half terrified. You don't even know me. I know you're afraid of being hurt again. I know you write about love, but you've stopped believing in it. I know you've convinced yourself that being alone is safer than being seen. My chest tightened. You got all that from my column. I got it from the way you looked at me when I said your name. He reached out and took my hand. This time, I didn't pull away. I'm not going to hurt you, Claire, he said. But I'm also not going to let you hide. And in that moment, standing in the rain with a man I'd known for 3 hours, I made a choice. Not to go home with him. Not to kiss him. Not yet. But to let him in. Just a little. Just enough. Okay, I whispered. Okay, he echoed. And we stood there, soaked and smiling, like two people who just found something they didn't know they were looking for. Adrian didn't disappear. That was the first surprise. Men always disappear. They promise to text, to call, to see you again. And then they don't. They ghost. They fade. They become a memory you dissect in your next column. But Adrian texted me the next morning. Coffee? Or are you still recovering from last night? I stared at the message for a full minute before replying, coffee. But only if you promise not to psychoanalyze me again. No promises. We met at a cafe in Williamsburg, bright, loud, the opposite of the intimate wine bar. I thought maybe in daylight, the magic would fade, that he'd be just another guy, that I'd realize I'd romanticized the whole thing. But when I saw him waiting outside, hands in his pockets, that same half-smile on his face, my stomach flipped all over again. Hey, he said, as if we'd known each other for years. Hey, I said back, trying to sound casual. We ordered coffee. We sat by the window. We talked about everything and nothing. He asked about my childhood, my favorite books, what I was afraid of, and I answered, honestly. More honestly than I'd been with anyone in years. I'm afraid of wanting something too much, I admitted. Because every time I do, it gets taken away. He nodded slowly. So you stopped wanting. I stopped expecting, I corrected. There's a difference. Is there? I looked down at my coffee. I like to think so. He reached across the table and touched my hand. Not holding it, just touching it. A reminder that he was there. What if, he said quietly, you let yourself want something, just once, without expecting anything in return? I met his eyes. And what if I lose it? Then at least you had it. Over the next 2 weeks, Adrian became part of my world, not in a suffocating way, not in a, we have to see each other every day way, but in a quiet, steady way that felt inevitable. He'd text me random thoughts throughout the day, lines from books, questions about love, observations about strangers on the subway. We'd meet for drinks after I finished writing. We'd walk through the city at night. We'd sit in parks and talk until the streetlights came on. And every time I was with him, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Hope. Not the naive, reckless kind. Not the, maybe this time it'll be different kind, but the real kind. The kind that whispers, maybe you deserve this. One night, we were sitting on a bench near the Brooklyn Bridge. The city skyline glowed in the distance. The air was cold, sharp, clear. I need to tell you something, I said. He turned to look at me. I'm listening. I'm scared. Of what? Of this, of you, of the way you make me feel. He didn't try to comfort me. He didn't tell me not to be scared. He just nodded. Good, he said. I frowned. Good. Fear means it matters, he said. If you weren't scared, I'd be worried. I laughed despite myself. That's a terrible way to reassure someone. I'm not trying to reassure you, he said, turning his body toward mine. I'm trying to be honest. He reached up and cupped my face with one hand. His thumb brushed against my cheek. I'm scared too, Claire. My breath hitched. Of what? Of not being enough. Of you realizing I'm just another guy who's going to let you down. You won't, I said, the words spilling out before I could stop them. How do you know? Because, I whispered. You already see me, and you're still here. He leaned in slowly, giving me time to pull away, time to change my mind. But I didn't. I kissed him. And it wasn't desperate or rushed or filled with the frantic energy of lust. It was soft, tender, a promise. When we pulled apart, he rested his forehead against mine. I'm not going anywhere, he said. And for the first time, I believed him. But life has a way of testing the promises we make. 3 weeks after that kiss, Adrian called me late at night. His voice was different, strained, tired. I need to see you, he said. Now. Now. I met him at the same wine bar where we'd first met. Full circle. Poetic, almost. But when I walked in, I could tell something was wrong. He was sitting at the bar, staring at a glass of whiskey like it held all the answers. I sat down next to him without a word. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. I have to go, he finally said. My chest tightened. What do you mean? London, for work, 6 months, maybe longer. I stared at him. When? End of the week. 4 days. I had 4 days left. Why didn't you tell me sooner? I asked, my voice breaking. Because I didn't want to ruin this, he said, gesturing between us. I didn't want to start something knowing I'd have to leave. But you did anyway, I said quietly. He turned to look at me. His eyes were red, glassy. I couldn't help it, he said. I tried to stay away. I tried to convince myself it was better not to meet you. But then I saw you that night, sitting at this bar, reading your book, looking so you, and I couldn't walk away. Tears stung my eyes. So what now? I don't know. Don't do that, I said, my voice sharper than I intended. Don't say you don't know. You always know. You always have the answer. Not this time. I stood up, suddenly unable to sit still. So this is it. We just end? Claire? No, I said, shaking my head. Don't Claire me. You don't get to make me feel something and then just leave. I'm not trying to hurt you. But you are. The words came out louder than I meant. People turned to look. I didn't care. You're hurting me? I repeated, quieter this time. And the worst part is, I knew this would happen. I knew it. And I let myself hope anyway. He stood up and took my hands. Come with me. I froze. What? Come with me. To London. I pulled my hands away. Are you serious? Yes. I can't just... I have a life here. I have work. I have... Excuses, he said gently. You have excuses. I stared at him, my heart pounding. You're asking me to uproot my entire life for someone I've known for a month. I'm asking you to take a chance. That's not fair. I know. Silence. He stepped closer. I'm not asking you to be reckless, Claire. I'm asking you to be brave, just once, for yourself. I wanted to say yes. God, I wanted to say yes. But fear is louder than hope. It always has been. I can't, I whispered. He nodded slowly, like he'd expected it, like he'd known all along. Okay, he said, and he kissed my forehead. Soft. Final. And then he walked out. I didn't go to London. I told myself it was the smart choice, the logical choice, the safe choice. But safe doesn't mean happy. For weeks after Adrian left, I couldn't write. I couldn't think. I couldn't do anything but replay that night over and over in my head. What if I had said yes? What if I had been brave? What if I had chosen love over fear? One night, I opened my laptop and started typing. Not a column, not an essay, a letter. Dear Adrian, I don't know if you'll ever read this, I don't even know if I'll send it. But I need to say this out loud, or at least write it down. You were right. I was afraid. I am afraid. But fear isn't the problem. The problem is that I've spent so long protecting myself from pain that I forgot how to let myself feel anything else. You saw me, really saw me. And instead of running toward you, I ran away. I don't know if I'll ever be brave enough to take the kind of chance you asked me to take. But I know this. Meeting you changed me. You reminded me that love isn't about guarantees. It's about showing up. It's about saying yes even when you're terrified. I wasn't ready then. But maybe someday, I will be. Thank you for seeing me. Thank you for trying. Claire. I hit send before I could change my mind. And 3 hours later, my phone buzzed. I'm still in London. The offer still stands. No pressure, no expectations, just possibility. I stared at the message for a long time, and then I smiled. Because maybe love isn't about being ready. Maybe it's about choosing to try. Sometimes the scariest thing you can do is let yourself be seen. But if there's one thing I've learned, it's this. The right person won't just see you. They'll wait for you to see yourself.